on the Gallup website. They're summarizing what they saw in their polling when it came to immigration, and then how high immigration ranked as an influencer for those people that were voting.
Mm.
And as you know, when Trump ran, he made it a big deal, the wall and, you know, the Mexican rapists and all that. The topic had been hot enough, but maybe it was on warm status before that he made it a hot topic. What and I'll share with you on screen again, this particular article tells us, and I guess I will first show you the top for the reference of where this comes from, so you can. I guess I could cheat, but it's not my intention to cheat. This is on Gallup.com, and it talks. This is like a third of a fourth. This is the third of a series of articles in which they talk about the big issues: abortion, and in this case, gun control and immigration. And if I can show you in big, this September, it says here, shows that 6% of Americans mention immigration as the nation's most important problem. 6%. Now, this puts it as the fourth most mentioned problem, but it's pretty low.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with Trump, 20% people put it that high up. So that coming down, of course, there's a difference between how people view legal immigration and illegal immigration. But I had forgotten of this particular item. The Gallup's trend question gives Americans three choices. You know, would you like to increase immigration? Would you like to decrease it or keep it as it is? This is, I think, a Trump effect. 38% of Americans in most recent updates says immigration should be decreased. And I think that's still spillover from the Gallup, from the Trump years, because it's still quite high compared to what people used to think before that surge of the wall and all that junk. And now there's a lot of dissatisfied people with the border, including Democrats. It's not just the base, the Republican right that is on it, because I think it's been evident Biden has, however well-intentioned from some points of view, they don't know what to do either. And so when many people at the border started coming in and situations went awry across the world, they went back to some of the policies that were very widely rejected at the pre-election, his election. So anyway, so that's one of the big points, and of course the border stuff and the busing of people, or the flying of people up. But then they mention, you know, the illegal immigration part. And so they go into the beginning of this year on how it was still a topic. And there are two quotes here that stuck with me, that the 41% currently worried a great deal about illegal immigration. That was last April. And then as it comes down into more recent polling, you know, people just want to stop people at the border. Where is it? People don't want a wall, but they do want something more done at the border. Yeah, 3/4 of Americans said increasing border security was very or somewhat important goal of that. So I thought that was, well, maybe validate some of the thinking. The last section that they talk about is what do you do with the people already here? Uh, and so in 19, 60% said deporting all immigrants who are living in the United States legally back to their home country. Uh, Again, another Trump uh, position. Miller, probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trump just followed. Whatever he says, he was just following somebody else's agenda. So, as you can see at the end, the summary basically, um, they want the laws enforced, but they don't want to deport their neighbor necessarily.
Yeah, there's a difference between the idea and the actual personal connections.
Yeah.
For this most recent election, there was a lengthy article in the New York Times saying that Democrats did not want to talk about immigration for this election, and they largely didn't. Mm-hmm. Just because, I mean, the Republicans were talking about it somewhat, but they just didn't even want to engage. And I think that's just because of the large number of people that have been coming over until Biden set the new policy on Venezuelans. Because that was viewed as a failure of the Biden administration. In my mind, and maybe I'm missing something, but in my mind, that just means the border control was working, that they encountered all these people, mm-hmm. you know, because people are going to come, there's pulls and pushes, and the president and the head of Border Patrol, they can't control those things. At least that's the way I see it. But the perception is that if a lot of people are caught, the administration's doing something wrong.
Yeah, that's very strange. I don't know where that comes from.
It's like, but it's working. Yeah. They're empowering people. That's what they're supposed to do. Mm-hmm.
I think the inability to do something about border issues, no matter what the policies are, is something that I saw. I was at a conference in June in which a demographer was putting forward the demographic changes and you know the if you will the browning of America, but he was not. He said, I can't apologize for what the facts are. These changes are here. The cycle, as you can tell, the curve is what it is. The number of whites is diminishing because they're getting older, because they have less kids, because they're more affluent, because of, and then he goes through that. And then the question was brought from the floor after he finished. And the question was, what about immigration? How does that affect those demographic changes? And, you know, illegal or legal. And he was quite clear. He says the changes are not impacted by the number of immigrants or the policies about immigration, because he was showing trends of the last 100 years. And he said, we all believe that policy ought to, and it should, but the numbers here, and then he showed how many were native born of, let's say, the increase of Latinos. And he said, these are not numbers that are swayed. You know, the numbers of immigrants, you know, we're talking 10 million. We're talking about a country of 300 million people. And the number of kids being born is or people dying is the primary factor driving this demographic change. And he said, we don't have that many immigrants coming in to make the balance go down on either side. And that surprised me. I thought we immigrants did have an impact on it. And he was adamant. He said, no, and these are my numbers. And again, I'm not being political. I'm just describing the process that has started. And then he went on to a bunch of other things. But I learned that day. And I trust his numbers. That is, I may, and at other times, I may be more equipped to argue something through. But in this particular case, didn't intentionally shut me up, but I knew better than to venture into an area in which he had the numbers and I did not.
So if I'm understanding you right, he's saying that the browning of America will happen whether there's immigration or not. Is that correct?
Yeah. Correct. And he showed actually the bleep of the zero entries by Trump and Miller. Mm-hmm. And he shows and he says that didn't affect anything either. That is that the number of immigrants, in the long run was too small to make an effect, and shutting it down did not make an effect. The browning is happening. And then he veered off into the other section of his slides, which was basically the number of cities that are becoming majority Latino across the U.S. Even for me as a Latino, is kind of frightening. It's just happening. It was just like, I knew we were growing. I just didn't know we were growing that fast. So many cities, I think he listed like 5 a week or something that are becoming majority Latino. It was just like, I did not know that. I'm living in my little island here. Mm. So I don't know what it's going to be like. He didn't get that far, but what it would be like for me to be in the majority. And when I was in Vegas and when I've been in Miami, I do feel like I'm in the majority as a Latino. Spanish is spoken everywhere. The signs are all around in Spanish, and people just feel completely at ease arguing in whatever dialect of Spanish they happen to be with, and English is very irrelevant to them. And the first time I was involved in that, I just didn't expect it. I just thought that happened only at the border, where I come from, right? Mm-hmm.
So. That's really interesting. It's interesting, an interesting take on it, on the situation. I mean, I don't even really notice it one way or the other. I guess I don't really notice people's ethnicity that much. I notice culture more than ethnicity, if that makes sense. Like I can tell when I'm in a place where culture is different. Like city culture is different from small town culture, for example. So I react to that, and I think I read that more. I don't look around me and go, gosh, there's lots of people of color here, and so it's really different. I go, I'm in a big city, and so it's really different, I'm in New York, and everybody acts different than they do in Urbana. It's just a... But I don't...
I do notice it, and it may be just the circles, but when I visited my daughter in LA a year and a half ago, she's not particularly... She was in West Hollywood, mm-hmm. but she took me into town to just show me around, and she took me to Chinatown, and in Chinatown, the primary language was Spanish. Wow. The signs were in Spanish. Wow. When I went to buy in all the shops, the Chinese vendors had Mexican music putting on their speakers.
Interesting.
And I was like, I can't take this. It was just like, that's not supposed to happen. I've seen signs here for Chinese restaurants, asking for people, putting up their signs to hire Spanish speakers. Mm. That just, I laughed at that. But for the vendors and for actually it was Chinese and Korean vendors, all in that section, and they were catering to the Spanish speaking market. That was very crazy to me.
Okay, so definitely things have changed, because I lived in West Hollywood for a while in the 80s, mid 80s, and it wasn't like that at all. Yeah. I mean, there was a distinct difference. I remember going out there. This is one memory that's always struck me as a second generation person, that I thought okay, I'm going out to California now. I'm going to live there for a little while. And I'm finally going to be around people that are like, look like me, because I was one of, what, two families or something like that of, Mexican heritage in this town. I think there was one other family when I was little. And so I thought, well, this is why I feel, kind of out of out of my element. So I went out there, and no, I was as different from the Mexicans around there as I was from the white people around here. I mean, I was like, whoa, these people are completely different from me. We have nothing in common. They don't recognize me. I don't recognize them. But that was not the majority by any stretch of the imagination. It was like a kind of a small enclave here and there, But yeah, that's really interesting. I need to obviously travel more because I haven't done much traveling for a while.
Well, we all got locked in anyway, so it wasn't like that was a choice.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Because Chinatown, there back then, well, at least in San Francisco, as I recall, was very much Chinatown. I mean, it was like, okay, I'm in another country now. It was it was really interesting to go there. All of a sudden, the languages were different, the writing was different, the stores were different, everything was different. It was a really unique and fascinating place to visit, and still be in the U.S. I wonder what it's like now.
No, again, I was just visiting and being led around, but my little antennas were, my spidey sense was like very, ding,
Mm.
things are different now. So,
Wow, interesting.
so one last thought. I mean, I'm taking over when it comes to articles, but I was just, trying to fill my buckets because you guys read more than I do most of the time. So uh, there's this last one that I want to share with you. Uh, this one is Bloomberg, of course, very right. Uh, and I must say, usually on this channel, uh, rather pro-immigrant in that they want to bring in a lot more both technical workers, but also just labor force. This is the pro-immigrant side of the Republicans, and Bloomberg is not ashamed at all to put themselves forward. Uh, and this is, of course, again, when was the elections?
The 8th.
The 8th. Yeah. So this is right after the election. I would imagine that they were writing this article before, the elections were there. But I didn't know that last week was a lot of immigrants and DACA recipients visiting people on the Hill. So they talk about this surge of trying to get going. And as I saw this, I don't know if you can tell this highlight, FWD.us, you know who they are?
I came across something that they did this week, but I don't remember now what it was.
Yeah, I'll put up their website in just a minute, but they are the technical, they are the pro-immigrants of Silicon Valley.
Mm.
And it's a very organized, very well-funded group. And so they've been active, but I would say very, very, I wouldn't say they've been forward. They have not been careful. They're just forward as to these are the logical arguments of why we can't afford to be pushing out the best technical thinkers in the world. We need to bring them here. And as you can tell, as if you do just a quick read of this article, did I post it with you guys? Um, Romney and all that group is there. I'm just going to drop it here because I don't know if that's what I did. Yeah, it's the same one. I dropped it into your chat. But it's an interesting read because they see a lot of stuff going back and forth, but they're giving themselves a chance to be hopeful. Because when they are in the majority, these people will have their influence. And I will put down now the forward U.S. They are on it, on covering and then putting data as to what reform means. And, well, you can see, well, actually, I don't know what you're seeing, but yeah, you are seeing that. The written articles of just providing data, the facts of the political disadvantage to us and economic across the country for not being more sensible on immigration. They certainly do not advocate open borders, but they often argue about of us missing out on all the Indian technical progress that we're missing out on because we're not letting them in. We educate them and then send them back, and they don't want to be there. You know, they'd rather be here.
Mm-hmm.
And we cut ourselves up from all their attributes, all their good talent. So anyway, it's I visit this website when I want to catch up and feel good. When I'm down, I need a boost.
Yeah.
That's where it is. So anyway, they'll put a positive spin on things that some Republicans will just be bitter about and blame it, scapegoat immigrants. These guys won't. They say, no, we need more.
Mm-hmm. Well, we do. I can't count the number of pro-business, pro-immigrant articles that I've read over the years. And they make the case time and time again that we need workers, and cheap workers are good for business. They're not as much of a competition to native-born workers as people like to make out that they are. They enhance our capabilities. They enrich our culture. I mean, it's a good thing all the way around.
Yes, yes, and yes.
I like it because in this town, we certainly are getting the spill effect of so many more immigrants. The number, I think we're missing Ethiopian, but we're really getting good choices in many other categories that I'm like, wow, we're not so far away from the good food anymore.
Yeah.
I do know somebody whose parents are immigrants from, what is it called? Eritrea?
Yeah.
The one that's fighting with Ethiopia?
Yeah. Yeah, they're right next to each other or within each other. Yeah, but in Philly, I used to love going to the Ethiopian restaurant just on the west side of campus. It just felt homey. And of course, I'm not. Maybe my ancestors somewhere in there came from that area. I don't know, but it just felt good to eat with them. It was good. And in town, we have a fair. Now we have, just like we have had some Chinese north, south, Indian too, north, south, and east. On the Mexican side, now I can distinguish. We used to have Central Mexico cooks, immigrants, in the kitchens, and now we start to see the northern. I haven't seen any southern, south Mexican yet, but we will. It's kind of nice.
At some point, Yeah.
I turned it to food. I must be hungry.
Yeah.
My idea of comfort food is Indian food,
Yeah.
which I never had growing up. Never, but to me that just feels like comfort food.
Yeah.
That sounds good. Well,
I had a Guatemalan last week say that to me. He says, "Why does the Indian food taste so good to us?"
Because it's spicy and warm, and it has a lot of the same. It's not the same flavors, but it's the same effect, I think,
Yeah.
in some ways.
It's the richness.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
Well, we seem to have wound down to a certain extent, and I don't want to take up any more of your time than I already have. I really appreciate these sessions because it helps me get my thinking together, and here's some of these ideas and get them bounced back at me and that sort of thing. So that's really good, and I hope we can continue doing this because
It's enriching to me.
it feels good.
Yeah,
The
it
article
motivates me to read more. Sorry.
Same thing here. And actually, I was thinking about you guys yesterday. I was thinking, there may come a point that as we make it into a habit of producing and reading, to invite people to call in or to share or have a place to bring up their thoughts too, because I really do believe in groupthink, that the solution is not inside one person's head. It's putting the pieces together. And we have not had a lot of immigration forum action. And probably if we're creative, we would accept that, darn it, it's so hard to expend our energies in whether it's a couple of other not-for-profits or whether it's immigration stuff that needs to be done on the service side. So our creativity can't go everywhere. So I would wish that our creativity was also focused on the policy, because we have something to contribute in the aggregate. So anyway, well, thank you. I guess we'll keep it for next week. And then Thanksgiving will be upon us. So if you want to break it up and have something to show during Thanksgiving, I'll be gone the end of the month, the last week of the month. So
Yeah, I do have another meeting next Monday. I could say I can't come, but
doesn't have to be Monday for me, but
okay.
Whatever
That's
works
true.
for you guys.
That's generally my most free day, but not next Monday.
Okay. Well, we can figure it out in email between now and then.
Okay, let's figure that out in email and see when we can squeeze in some good bouncing. So
Sounds good.
that sounds good. May your
Thank you.
nights be good and warm.
It's getting harder and harder.
Yes, sadly. All right, my friends, have a great
Okay.
night.
Thank
All
you.
right. Good night.
Bye-bye.